Okay, let's begin. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all guests who have joined us today. I'm Luke Downs, Senior Marketing Manager here at Similarweb and the host of this exclusive webinar brought to you by ourselves and Retail Bloom. We will shortly be diving into the topic of building an Amazon advertising budget with 2022 data and trends. But before we get there, I am delighted to welcome Brandon Newquist, Similarweb's product specialist, and Nicole Reisch, co-founder and vice president of sales and marketing at Retail Bloom. Next slide, please, Nicole. Retail Bloom is a third-party marketplace service provider based in Michigan that provides an all-inclusive services to brands, retailers, and distributors to drive sales in online e-commerce marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart.com, and eBay. Today's presentation will be followed by a Q&A, so please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation using the chat feature. I'll pose these questions to both Brandon and Nicole at the end of the session, but until then, I'd like to hand you across to Nicole.
Thank you, Luke. That intro was better than I will be able to do. But before I do that, Brandon, do you want to give some background on yourself really quickly in Similarweb, and then I'll take over from there?
Yeah, sure thing. Hey, everybody. My name is Brandon Newquist. I'm the product specialist for our shopper intelligence solution, and really excited to be chatting with you all today. Nicole, want to go to the next slide? So today we're focusing on Amazon advertising budgets for CPG companies. When we think about the Similarweb offering for CPG companies, we think about two of our specific offerings. The first one being our digital research intelligence, and this focuses more on the D2C side of the business, right? We track things like website traffic, we track things like specific keyword performance on Google. So the D2C digital research offering gives consumers and users a really strong sense of what's going on in the overall digital website ecosystem. The offering we're going to be focusing on today, however, is our shopper intelligence solution, which is our deep dive into e-commerce marketplaces like Amazon.com, Walmart, and Target. Nicole, want to go to the next slide? So when thinking about shopper intelligence, we can kind of bucket the capabilities of our tool into three distinct categories. We have sales performance data. We have that at the category level, subcategory level, brand level, and product level. We also have on-site search data. So think about things like keywords for categories or for brands or products. And we even look at the individual keyword performance as well. Last but not least, we also have certain behavioral or audience metrics. We have things like demographic figures, loyalty and retention scores, cross-shopping behaviors, all that CPG companies can really use to increase their understanding of how consumers are behaving on these marketplaces. Thinking about the marketplaces we cover Amazon US and a couple of other domains globally. We also take a deep dive into Walmart.com, Chewy, Best Buy, and Target. Additionally, this offering is available for first-party and third-party brands, so it doesn't matter if you're selling through vendor or seller central. And this is an estimation tool, so we're definitely going, while the sales won't align one-to-one with a specific brand, you'll be able to see your competitors and the categories, dips, dives, and trends to get a better understanding of how these categories are going to be performing in the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to one of our power users, Nicole, to showcase how she's been using the tool.
Cool. So I will get into that in just a second. Just really high level, Luke mentioned, I'm Nicole. I head up our sales and marketing. I'm one of the co-founders at Retail Bloom. Just really quick background before we get into our agenda and then topics for today. As you can see here, we are a full service marketplace service provider. We help brands, manufacturers that are already on Amazon, Walmart, eBay, whatever the marketplaces are. We can work with them through Vendor Central, Seller Central, Walmart, Seller Center on the 3P side, or even Retail Link on the Walmart 1P side. So the way that we basically approach the way we work with brands is that we come to them, we do an audit, and we say, hey, here's where we see your performance. Here's what we think the opportunities are. Whether you sell 1P or 3P, we can help you. As it relates to the actual services themselves, as you can see here, brand protection services, helping with seller investigation, seller removal, map monitoring. From there, it's to content management, so product detail page optimization, SEO, imagery, bullet, videos, everything that consumer sees from the front end, our team handles. And then beyond that, customer service, advertising, expansion. Once we work on Amazon.com, most of the time we expand to Walmart or Amazon Global. And then from there, reporting insights and analytics. So for today's presentation related to Similarweb, like I said, we do a lot of audits, and a big piece of that is using Similarweb's data to give us benchmarking. When I look into any type of Amazon or Walmart account, I want to see how they are performing, and then I want to see how they're performing versus their competitors. So for today's call, as an agenda, I want to focus very much on the advertising portion. I get a lot of questions from brands around how much should I be spending? What should my tacos goals be? How do I split up my ad spend between different campaign types? So for our agenda for today, I'll answer some of those questions through our three main topics. The first one is going to be Q3 Amazon advertising trends. Our partner PackView just released their Q3 trends report, so I have some insights into what that looked like for cost per click, ROAS trends of last quarter versus previous. From there, we're going to specifically talk about how we use Similarweb to build an advertising budget based on data, so that when we are helping those brands go internally to get additional ad budget, they can back that up. Here's why we want to do it. Here's what our competitors are doing. If we want this in our paid shelf share, we need to be spending Y. So we'll get into that, and I'll show you how we do that within Similarweb. And then lastly, we'll close it out with just some details around sponsored display ads. And the reason I focus on this one is that for the most part, we find sponsored product ads and sponsored brands are in a really good place. But as sponsored display ads rolls out new features, some of those features aren't necessarily getting implemented on the brand side. So I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of how we've been using those and making some huge improvements to our campaigns. And then from there, we'll follow up with questions. I will say last thing before I get into this, I see the chat and I'm monitoring it. So if you do have questions throughout the deck, please feel free to chime in. I'd be happy to address those as we go through the slides. Cool. So Amazon advertising trends first. Again, this is coming from one of our partners, PackView. They look at cost per clicks across Amazon, Walmart, Instacart. They release this data on a quarterly basis. They just released it, I believe, 2 days ago. So this is pretty fresh. What we see on this slide is basically cost per click trends for sponsored brands, which is the orange line, or sorry, sponsored brands, which is the blue line, and sponsored products, which is the orange line. One of the things that I've heard a lot is that Amazon advertising is becoming less efficient because it's getting competitive and because the cost per click is going up. So when I first started digging into advertising in 2015, I remember my average cost per click was 25 cents. Obviously, those days are over. However, it isn't as crazy elevated as sometimes what we talk about. Sometimes I hear this, I don't want to call it an excuse, but a potential threat that cost per clicks are going up so significantly that that's what's making our ad budget inefficient on Amazon. And with this data, I would say, yes, maybe, but quarter after quarter and year over year, comparing 2021 to 2022, those trends have shifted a little bit. So when we look at Q3 cost per click versus Q2, for both sponsored brands and sponsored product ads, the cost per click fell. Sponsored product ads has actually year over year, Q3 versus Q3 last year, decreased by 3.3%. And then sponsored brands has increased by 7.3% year over year. Our insights on this, just applying some reasoning to why these data points are happening. One, sponsored brands, the creative assets or the ability for brands to use sponsored brands to include video, to have better banner ads, all of that has improved over the last 12 months. So I see brands making sponsored brands more of a priority than they had previously. So seeing that sponsored brand cost per click increase year over year makes complete sense. On the sponsored product ad side, seeing the decrease or having it be relatively flat, not a ton of insights there outside of when you look at your Amazon budget as a whole, you definitely want to diversify your spend between different campaigns. So not to say that sponsored product ads still aren't the most popular, but their ad units are popping up all over the pages, which again drives the cost per click down. And also brands are looking at ad spend across all ad types, not necessarily putting all of their funds directly into sponsored product ads, which was the case previously when that was really one of the only campaign types available. looking at click-through rate, I love this one. So I talked about sponsored brand ads being a really cool tool for brands to give more creative assets, headline banner ads, add some imagery, video, whatever it might be. And we're seeing those creative assets really improve the click-through rate. So sponsored brands click-through rate has improved 38% Q3 this year versus Q3 last year. And sponsored product ads has decreased 20% year over year. So again, on the sponsored product ads, those are much more established, but as sponsored brand ads change, as Amazon gives brands the opportunity to improve what that ad type looks like for consumers, I think we'll continue to see this click-through rate improve, which is another reason why brands are investing a bit more in sponsored brands than they had previously. And then lastly, ROAS. And on apologies, this is supposed to be sponsored brands here, but as we can see, the average ROAS for sponsored product ads is 477, and then sponsored brand just a little lower than that at 391. Sponsored products had a bit of an increase there. Not any huge insights. Sponsored brands have always had traditionally a little bit of lower of a ROAS. And I think as brands improve their Amazon store, as they improve the creative content, we'll hopefully start to see this gap close a little bit. All right, moving on to our second section around building an advertising budget with data. So when we look at advertising budget during our planning period, which happens quarterly every 90 days, and then for the year every 12 months, we do it in two different ways. One, we do it by top down. We have a sales target, and then we say how much advertising do we want to allocate in order to hit that target. And then we also have a bottom-up approach where we say, hey, how much of the share of shelf are we wanting to cover for this particular keyword? How much market share are we looking to take? And how much is it going to cost us to win that keyword consistently to hit that target? So on the top-down approach first, here's a very high-level summary of what we do. We look at sales forecasts. How much do we want to grow year over year? Are we trying to grow for profitability, or are we trying to grow for market share? That definitely changes our view on the way that we approach advertising. From there, we then decide what is our total tacos goal going to be. So how much are we willing to spend in order to hit that sales forecast at the entire brand level? And then we start to think about what our target customer funnel stage would be. Do we want to target upper funnel? Do we want to target lower funnel? The tacos goals related to that customer funnel changes. The higher you go, the lower the ROAS and the higher the tacos goal, right? So after that, then we drill down to tacos goal by product line. We set ACoS goals by campaign types. And then lastly, we compare that budget to our competitors to get a little bit of a pulse check. Does this make sense, right? Because all of 1 through 4 is set very much internally. And up until this point, we don't have any data to look at the category as a whole and say, okay, this is what we think our assumptions are going to be, but what are our other competitors are doing, and do they make sense? So the one thing I want to get into first is setting this tacos goal by the target customer funnel stage, and then I'll move into how we use Similarweb. So I mentioned, as you go up the customer funnel, your tacos goal is going to increase. It's going to it's going to cost you more with a little bit less of a return as you go upper funnel, as we know, right? So as an example, these are the types of ad units that we use as we look at the customer funnel. So if someone says, I want to drive awareness, that triggers our team to say, hey, we've got to build DSP. If they say, hey, this year I really want to be driving for profitability, we know that we want to go probably down the customer funnel. Our tacos goal is going to be lower, but then on the right side, we know that we are also targeting a much more specific or narrowed customer base. So if we've only got 5% tacos, we know that on the right side, we can go after branded and generic, and we should probably be using sponsored product ads or sponsored brand ads. As brands invest more in Amazon, we again can start to go upper funnel and use different types of ad units that Amazon has to offer. Before I move on, I just want to take a really quick pause. Brandon or Luke, any questions, anything that I might have missed before I move on? No, all good?
Not from me.
Okay, am I talking fast enough? Because I feel like I am. So
No, we're good to go.
the recording and the deck will go out after this. So the next thing that I want to dig into is how we use Similarweb for this last piece. Again, at this point, let's assume we have our sales forecast, we have our budget, we have our goals, and then we say, does this make sense? How do we use data out there to compare our strategy versus other competitors in the space? And I want to show you how we do that within Similarweb. So Brandon mentioned on the shopper intelligence tool, you can drill into category and you can see sales performance by brand. And in this scenario, for this entire example, I'm looking into robot vacuums. Why did I pick that? Well, Prime Day was last week and I was in search of a robot vacuum. So I decided to just use that as an example for today's call. So if you are in search of a robot vacuum, you now have a bunch of data for it. But on the sales performance side, you can see the top brands here. You can see their change in units sold by this date range. We can look at revenue, we can look at product views, and we can look at conversion. So when we use this piece for our sales forecast, we first want to say, where are we performing at previous revenue, right, over the last 12 months? And what are our competitors doing year over year? So that's sales forecast. But then once we get into advertising, what we start to do is we look at product clicks, and then we also start to make assumptions about what that ad budget would be. So what I did in this example is I pulled the top 5 brands in the category, and Similarweb shows us for their clicks. So when people search for iRobot, or when they find iRobot on Amazon, 20% of the time, they are finding those products through paid clicks. 80% of the time, they are finding them through organic clicks, and then so on through these 5 brands. So if your brand is here as the 6th brand, we would look and say, okay, you've got 10% of your clicks coming from paid and 90% coming from organic. Depending on what our goals are, that may be in line, or maybe we need to make some adjustments. From there, what we do is we start to look at this little chart where we combine the brand, the clicks, again, these are all from Similarweb, the percentage of paid clicks, which again comes right from this slide, this report, and then make some assumptions about what the cost per click is in this category. And I'll show you how we pull that in a second, but just for this example, this is a very competitive category on Amazon. I assumed that the cost per click was $3. And what we're able to get to then is what we think their budget is. So it's basically the clicks by the brand, again, pulling from Similarweb, what percent of those clicks are paid, 20% for iRobot. We assume that they are paying $3 a click, and then we can think about what that budget would be for this specific category. One thing to note within Similarweb, which is just absolutely amazing, is that you can go really, really high level in health and household, and then you can drill all the way down to vacuum, robot vacuum. So be very careful about the type of data that you're pulling from Similarweb, because iRobot might be paying $600,000 a year for just this category. That doesn't mean that they don't have another budget that's something beyond this for other categories that they're in. So again, just want to give you an idea of how we get to this budget here. So total clicks for the year, what percentage is paid, multiply these all 3 together to get an estimate of the budget. So now applying that to what you think your assumptions are going to be, let's say that you have 10% of your clicks coming from paid, you want X amount of clicks on the year, we have an idea of our cost per click, you can start to put what your estimated budget is next to your competitors and say, does this make sense? If you do this entire analysis and find that, you've only got a $16,000 budget, well, then you can't assume that you're going to be taking market share from iRobot. All right, the other thing that we look at is ASP, average selling price, and then also their 12-month sales. And these are important because if you are a premium product and you don't have a ton of brand recognition, your ad budget should be more. If you are very competitive and everyone knows you, maybe you're a household name brand and your ASP is very competitive, you may may be able to leverage that a bit more and spend less than other competitors. It is not a coincidence that some of these brands that we may or may not know that we consider as Amazon only brands or private label brands, they spend a hefty amount on ad spend, and you'd be surprised looking in Similarweb how many times I found brands that really well-known brands say, hey, I think my competitors are this, and then I show them the Similarweb data and their competitors are completely different. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of the brands that are taking share on Amazon aren't always the same brands that are taking share in your other channels. Anything to add, Brandon, before I move on the opposite side of bottom up?
No, I think that was great. Nicole did reference our like cross-shopping tool, which is how we identify those competitors. So with the tool, we're actually able to identify which other brands your shoppers are overlapping with. So you can actually quantify the threat other brands pose to your products on Amazon, and then identify your competitive set that way. But yeah, feel free to move on, Nicole.
Cool. All right, so this gives us a pulse check, right? What do we think our budget is going to be? How does that compare to our competitors? Does it make sense? It's a little bit of science, but it's also a little bit of art. And again, you then have to take this data to present it to your internal teams to get approval for that budget. Now going the opposite way. So let's say that we want to base our budget, and we do a little bit of both. We know that we want to go after certain keywords. From there, the process that we go through is understanding what those keywords are, understanding the cost per click for those keywords, and then using the paid versus organic assumptions through Similarweb to then calculate the budget by the keyword. So what would that look like? Another screenshot from Similarweb here. You can see I searched for robot vacuum. You can see the search volume. We can get an idea of how many of these clicks are paid versus how many are organic. And then we can also look at, within Amazon advertising, what we think that estimated bid is. So if you don't know the suggested bid, a lot of the times you have to run an auto campaign within Amazon to get this type of suggested bid data. I have not found a tool out there, not in Similarweb nor in other tools, that give us suggested bids within Amazon advertising. The only way that we found to have this, the only way we found to get this data is by running an auto campaign and then having Amazon advertising tell us what the suggested bid is. So after doing an auto campaign, we can see that for this bid exact, right, for this keyword with match type exact, the cost per click runs us anywhere from $2 to $10. Again, I told you this is a very competitive category, so not surprised to see that. And then the estimated bid is $4.30. So I just take that as a benchmark and do a very similar exercise, but on the keyword level instead of the brand level. So for robot vacuum, we know that there's 2.2 million clicks. 22% of those are paid, which gives us about 480,000 in paid clicks. And then let's say that I want to take 5% of that paid click share, and I know that the cost per click is $4.30 a click. That means that I would have to spend $100,000 just on this keyword over 12 months to give me this paid share shelf target. So the equation kind of at the bottom, right? The clicks for the keyword, the percent of those clicks that are paid, your paid shelf target, multiplied by what you think the average cost per click is, which again, you pull out of Amazon advertising, will give you the estimated budget over X period of time that you're going to need to hit that paid shelf target. So we've got the top down compared against our competitors. Here's how much we can spend versus our forecast. Does that make sense? And then after that, we go bottom up. We know that we want to hit these targets per paid shelf for these keywords. Does this budget allow us to hit those targets and then still hit our top level budget for advertising? Brandon, any questions, comments on this part?
No, that's super interesting. Have there been any like recent examples of like success that you've found?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a case study where we ran this. We've only been working with Similarweb since January, and for anyone on the call that's using Similarweb, you'll know how easy it is to get lost in that data. But then also very, very valuable. I'm in Similarweb probably every day putting together our audits, and then we're also using Similarweb during our quarterly business reviews to take the same approach with the clients that we work with. So I do have a case study on giving you an example of how it's worked for us so far. All right, the next thing that I want to dig into, we have about 5 to 10 minutes left, is sponsored display ads. And like I mentioned, I focus on this ad type because sponsored brands and sponsored product ads seem to be pretty straightforward. I see brands adopting those, but I also get a lot of questions around sponsored display versus DSP. I have a slide that will, when we send out the deck, you'll be able to see just a chart comparing the two, but really high level on sponsored display. This ad unit on Amazon has been evolving, and they've been able to give us some really cool abilities that do not require a minimum DSP budget. So just really high level, if you haven't already done DSP and you're trying to consider whether you do DSP or not, my first question is, have you utilized completely sponsored display ads? Because again, they require no minimum budget, and you can see the results in real time, and really focus on some of the ad benefits that are going to lead to a better ACoS and a better ROAS. So what do sponsored display ads look like today? So under the sponsored display ad unit, you can either target audiences or you can target product targeting. Product targeting has been around for a while. Audiences is what they've been able to really ramp up over the last 12 months. Within sponsored display ads, you are able to target on Amazon site traffic, but you are also able to target off Amazon traffic, which is a newer capability that, again, kind of speaks to a little bit of DSP, where you can go upper funnel, but not have to spend that minimum ad budget. This one is really around, both of these are within audiences. So I'll quickly talk about product targeting. These ones, basically what it looks like is under product targeting, you can go to categories or products. You can target by star rating. You can target by price range. You can target specific brands. So on the right side, I've just given an idea of some of the campaign or the ad types that we've created for our partners. And just keep in mind that all of these ads are within Amazon.com. They are not driving traffic from off Amazon sites back to Amazon. On the audience side, which is where, again, where we've seen a ton of success lately, I just pulled this metric from one of our partners. On average, display ads generate 2.2 times higher incremental sales rates. So this is a bit of a hidden gem, I would say, right now. I don't think brands are completely utilizing these as much as they can be. And because of that, we're seeing still relatively low cost per clicks, and we're just not seeing them as competitive as the other ad units. So within audiences, you can do Amazon audiences, or you can do retargeting, whether that be views or purchases. This piece, both of these pieces actually, you can target brand customers on Amazon.com, and you can also target them if they went to Amazon.com, are then going to a different website, and get them back to the site to purchase. So within this portion, right, for views, let's say they looked at a product and then went to ESPN, you could put an ad on ESPN to drive them back to Amazon. Let's say that they purchased 60 days ago and then are shopping on ESPN.com again. You can upsell them, cross-sell them, get them back to this site. On the audience side, they've really built these out. You can drill down into lifestyle, think getting married, buying a house, graduating from college. That would be under kind of lifestyle or life events. You can target interest, and then you can also target in market. So what does that look like on the view side, right? Remarketing, they viewed your product but didn't purchase, or purchase side, they purchased a product and now you want to drive them back. And then within lifestyle and interest, just again, some examples. Let's say that we're going after audiences like foot, hand, and nail care. you can get an idea of the potential reach. And then on the even drill down even further, we can speak to the different interests. So are they interested in beauty and hairstyling? Again, this is got a little bit of DSP because DSP offers similar approach in some of their advertising capabilities, but within this sponsored display, you can do it without that minimum budget. All of this is based on cost per click, just like sponsored brands and sponsored product ads. And then lastly, just speaking to a current case study. So within Freshwave, Brandon, like I mentioned, over the last 90 days, we took this approach of saying, how much do we want to spend? How do we want to spend that? What are your top sales forecast goals? For Freshwave, they really wanted to go upper funnel. They really wanted to say, we are trying to acquire new customers. We want to take over market share. We're not necessarily growing for profitability. We're growing for expanding the brand. And over the last 90 days, we have used Similarweb, like I said, implemented sponsored display. We've done DSP. We've done sponsored product ads, sponsored brand ads. Again, applying a tacos and an ACOS target to each of those types of campaigns. And here are some of those results. So over the last 90 days, 95% increase in total revenue, 51% increase in ad spend, and then with our ad revenue going up 78%. I use this one as a specific example because when you go up upper funnel, keep in mind that your conversion is going to go down, right? So that's what we saw. We have more eyeballs looking at our products, but those eyeballs aren't converting at the same rate that they had previously. So decrease in 19% in conversion, but we've also been able to decrease the cost per click by 36%. And the way that we did that was that they had a lot of auto campaigns in the background and they were not spending very efficiently. So we cleaned up all the previous campaigns. That got us some additional ad spend that we then could allocate to DSP and to sponsored display ads. Cool. That is all I had for today. Brandon and Luke, I'll hand it back to you guys for questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, some really compelling figures there from the Freshwave case study to show, how we go about putting those practices into those theoretical elements into practice there as well. We've just a quick one for our audience who are live. We'll be fielding questions right now, so please get them in. Now, I guess we've got a few questions which are coming through the presentation. And the first one, Brandon, is for you, and it is, can Similarweb data be used to inform conquesting strategies?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like Nicole mentioned, some of the product related advertising allows you to target specific brands. We have a really interesting feature in the tool similar to when Nicole was benchmarking the paid and organic clicks. You can also benchmark branded versus non-branded search clicks. So that gives you a really strong understanding of the traffic that's leading to your competitor brands. And if your competitor is getting a really high share of branded search, it may not make sense to target those specific brands on Amazon because people are going to Amazon with the intent to purchase that specific brand or to purchase from that specific brand. You may want to target brands that get a lower share of branded search, as those people may be more exploratory in their search intent and maybe more willing to check out your brand page and potentially purchase from your product as well.
I'm going to flip back through, just hold tight, just to show what that would look like. Brandon, you mentioned a really good point on, sorry, I should be, there we go, right here. So like Brandon said, yes, we can get paid and organic by brand, but there's another report that will show you for the specific brand, what percentage of the clicks are coming from branded clicks, what percentage are coming from non-branded, and then what percentage are coming from competitor brand names. Meaning, for example, iRobot, a consumer searches for shark, but then clicks on iRobot. You are able to see that within one of the reports from Similarweb, which is really helpful for us. When we pull that type of data and see the brands we're working with doing really well with clicks from competitor brands, that tells us we need to be investing significantly more in conquest brand campaigns because they're already doing well. They're already getting the clicks and seeming relevant to the customers that are looking for that brand or the competitor brand.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Nicole. Nicole, we have a couple of questions for you. The first one of which is, once you have a set budget, how do you decide your campaign types and goals for each ad unit?
Yeah, so I'm going to flip back to this one for just a second, back to our funnel. So like I mentioned, I'm going to pull it up this way instead of giving everyone a headache. Here we go. Like I mentioned, we start at the top, right, and saying, what do we want the overall ad budget to be? And then we drill down to a potential tacos goal based on where we target that customer. So again, if you are wanting to do DSP, that tacos goal has to be much higher. And then once we get those done and think, okay, our tacos goal for DSP is going to be 20%, and for consideration, it's going to be 15, and then for conversion, it's going to be 10. Then we use our reporting details or our reporting dashboard to set the ACoS goals that would yield that total tacos goal for conversion or for consideration. So again, high level tacos goal by brand, then we drill down to tacos goal by campaign type, and then we're setting ACoS goals at the keyword level or the ad type level.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. Just a last call for questions. In the meantime, in the Freshwave case, how did CPC decrease? Since we've invested in SBV and SDs, CPC, should it not be higher?
Yeah, good question. So I'm going to go back to this just so you guys can see where the question's coming from. So the question related to this cost per click, why did that go down if we are spending so much more? So the reason for that is that we ended up switching some of the budget from the campaign types that had a really high cost per click. So not to say that this is exactly what happened, but for example, cost per click on sponsored product ad was $1.75. That ACoS actually was higher than sponsored brands and sponsored display. So we took the spend from the ad types that had a higher cost per click and then put that spend towards the other ad units that have a lower cost per click. And that's where we got that from. In addition to that, like I said, they were running a ton of auto campaigns and it was kind of spiraling and it was just really inefficient. So as we negated keywords that we knew weren't going to convert, that also caused the cost per click to come down.
Amazing. Okay. There are no further questions which are open. So I will close the session down. A huge thank you to you, Nicole, and to Brandon for both of your time this afternoon. And of course, to our audience for taking the time out to join us. And I hope you found the session valuable and relevant. The webinar will be available post-event on demand via our YouTube channel. So if you happen to miss anything or would like to share it with your colleagues, please go ahead and find it there. Thanks again, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.